Welcome to the Stories of Vermilion, Ohio, oral history series presented by the Vermilion Area Archival Society in collaboration with the Vermilion History Museum and Ritter Public Library. My name is Rich Tarrant. I'm the curator of the Vermilion History Museum. This program is going to be videotaped, so please turn off your cell phones. Our guest tonight is, you tell me who you are.
Oh, I'm Larry Howell.
When and where were you born, Larry?
I was born November 23rd, 1938, and we lived on Furnace Hill, and where Ron Mayer lives now. And actually, I was born in Sandusky, Ohio, at Good Samaritan Hospital. I can remember my dad saying he had an old Willys, and with a radiator up in front. And to get my mom to the hospital so I could be born, he plowed snow from here to Sandusky, as high as the radiator. And I was born the next day.
Now, one question I want to ask you. Your name is not Lawrence, is it?
No, it isn't. My dad said that they're going to call him Larry. Let's call him Larry, and let's put Larry on his birth certificate. So I'm Larry, not Lawrence.
Who was your mother?
Jenny Blanche Boone.
And who was your dad?
Irvin George Howell.
What did your dad do for a living?
Well, my dad worked for the New York Central Railroad. He started out firing a steam crane, and he worked his way up to section foreman on the New York Central, and then he was with Conrail and all the rest, Penn Central and all the rest of the railroad until he retired.
How many years did he work there?
42 years.
Wow. How many siblings do you have?
I have one sister.
Etta.
Etta, yes, and she lives in Milan.
Okay. Another question. I wanted to go back to your family again, and I want to ask you about your grandfather on your dad's dad.
Okay.
Tell me about him.
Well, let me think for a minute here. My grandpa Howell, George Washington Howell, and his dad, Jarius Irvin Howell, were the town's blacksmiths. And they lived in a house, what is the Wakefield House, the museum. They lived in the house behind the museum, and that's where my dad was born.
Where did Jarius come from? How did he get here? So I know it's a kind of a long story, but I'd like to hear it.
Well, basically, they lived down in Georgia in the South, and when the Civil War was going on, they were fighting for the South, and they didn't know for sure what they were fighting for. And during the law, that's what my dad told me anyway. During the law in the battle, they were talking to the Yankees, and they found out that they were fighting for slavery, and they didn't believe in slavery, so they ran away and joined the North.
Where was his blacksmith shop at?
Well, if you go to where Hart's Corner Drugstore used to be, Main Street Grill, you go north 2 or 3 houses, and you'll come to a house that sets back, and that's where the blacksmith shop was there.
Speeding right along here, what school did you attend?
Vermilion schools all my life.
When did you graduate, Larry?
June 1957.
Do you have any special school memories? Say, let's go to the first grade. Do you remember anything from the first grade?
You would ask that. I had Mrs. Perdue for my first grade teacher. And I guess my most memorable moment was we had these desks that were seated 2 people. And I remember they were brown colored, and you put your books and things in a slot. And I was sitting in the aisle seat talking to the girl next to me while Mrs. Perdue was trying to teach school. I had my hand on the desk, and she come along with a 12-inch ruler and whacked it. And I can remember crying and crying.
I just can't imagine Larry talking while somebody else was trying to do something. Can't imagine that. How about some other school memories? You got any?
Well, let's think.
That was South Street, correct?
Yeah, it was South Street School. Our class was really the first class when they built the Decatur Street School. Our class was the first class to go completely through it from freshman to senior.
And Decatur Street.
Decatur Street, yes.
What are some of the teachers besides Mrs. Purdue do you remember very well?
Oh, we had a third grade teacher. I think her name was Billy Randall West. We had Miss Toby, and had her in English in high school. Mr. Utter. Mr. Utter was the town's mayor, and he was also on the water board in Vermilion. I never had Mr. Gebhardt, but he was my principal. I had Mr. Schrader. He was our psychology teacher. Gosh. I can't think of them all right now, but
Well-
most of them are pretty good.
We'll probably revisit that before we're through here, Larry.
Okay.
Where did you live growing up? You told us where you were born, but where did you live when you were growing up here in Vermilion?
My first place was on Perry Street, right next to the railroad tracks. The city owned the house, and I believe it's gone now. I'm not sure. I haven't been down. But and Rich lived right across the railroad tracks. Of course, he wasn't born when I lived there. And then we moved to Axtell, where Johnny Grizzle lived, and lived there for a while. And then we moved to the house on the corner of State Street and South Street, and that's where I lived until I got married. Started school there and graduated there and went into the Air Force there.
Did you have any relatives very near there?
Oh, my grandpa and grandma Boone lived in Axtell.
How about
And on Perry Street, I had an Uncle Jim. We called him Uncle Jim. His name was Alva Boone, and he lived across the street from where Rich lived and across the railroad tracks from where I lived.
as long as we're talking about that, what do you remember about Alvy and his family there?
Well, I can remember on Saturday nights, we all used to meet at his house. Your family came over. They had the first TV. He worked on TVs, and he also was an electrician for U.S. Steel. And on Saturday nights, Aunt Esther, that was his wife, they set chairs up in their living room and turned the TV on, and I can remember your family and some other families and our family gathering around the TV and watching TV, like Arthur Godfrey and like that. And Aunt Esther made popcorn for everybody.
Cool. How about when you were living on State Street? Anybody near there that you might have known? That's your relative?
Yeah, right across the street was a church. It was called the Foursquare Church. Now it's called the Harbortown Community Church. And my Aunt Myrtle was the pastor there. In fact, my cousin Ronnie is someplace here. Her son is sitting right back there. And we did a lot together, didn't we, Ron?
Yeah, we sure did.
Gosh. Yes, we sure do.
As long as we're talking about that, did you have any cars while you were there as you got older, automobiles?
Oh, yeah, my first car was a 1949 Mercury. Ronnie found it for me from a guy named Dick Green, and it was all customized and everything. And I think my next car was a 58 Chevy Impala convertible. Then from Nick Mayer, I acquired a 34 Plymouth Coupe, which was all cut up and everything, but I was able to drive it. And now I own I bought it brand new, a 1966 Corvette. I still got it.
You ever drive it?
Not recently. That's a sad story with my wife.
Now going back to that Chevy convertible, what
Okay.
happened to that car? That was a nice car. Tell them about that car.
Well, I bought it in April the 1st, 1958. Talked to Sharpnecks. Sharpnecks was down right across the street here then, and I talked to them about buying it and started the deal, settled the deal, got my mom to sign for me because my dad was dead against owning a convertible because they were dangerous. And when he found out that I bought that car, wow. But he couldn't do much after that.
What color was it?
It was a blue, a dark blue. I can't remember the exact color. The top was a light blue, had a 348 engine in with 3 two-barrel carburetors and a turbo glide. And go ahead.
What happened to it?
I sold it to Glenn Foper. He bought it for his wife, Nancy. and he took the turbo glide out and he put a power glide in it and put power steering on it. And pardon me, I got to get a little drink of water here. And anyway, after she was kind of through with it, he sold it to a Vermilionite by the name of Jim Maurer, who now lives in Milan. And his in-laws were had across the street from me on South Street, and he had it parked.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
Okay.
You have to understand that this was really a nice car. It wasn't just any car. It was a nice car. Go ahead.
Okay. He had it parked on South Street, just around from Grand Street, and a little old lady that went to the ENR church had a 1948 Ford two-door sedan. She went around the corner and never straightened out and hit that car, knocked it up over the curb, bent the frame and the back fender, and I think Jim traded it to Kyle Motors on a Buick Skylark. And the last I saw of it, one of the Kyle brothers invited me up, and it was sitting in their old body paint shop, and they wanted me to buy it back, but I said, no, I don't want it now.
Who were some of your friends way back when?
Well, of course, Ronnie, Lenny Salisbury, Jim Maurer, Bob Maurer. Bob Maurer and I used to run trap lines together up on his farm. Never caught anything but house rats.
Larry, did you ever smoke?
Well, I tried it once. My dad worked for the railroad, and he wore these overalls with a place to put your ruler in the pant pocket. And he used to have a little pipe, and when he was working on a railroad, he smoked Prince Albert tobacco in this little pipe. And so one day I decided I was going to try it. So I got out the pipe, and it was in the writing desk, and I got out the sideboard, and I got out the pipe and packed it with Prince Albert. Dad saw me, never said anything. I went out in the back porch, lit it up, took about 3 good puffs. Of course, I inhaled it. I headed for the latrine, and I kind of upchucked. That, I never smoked since.
Were you a drinker, Larry?
No, you want that story too?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a beer once in here and there, but I never was a heavy drinker. And then when I went in the Air Force, I had a couple buddies, one roommate that was getting out. We had this guy from Bayonne, New Jersey, that he was kind of a grubby little guy, and he had this crock jug like the moonshiners use. Well, we'd been to England and brought some booze back, different kinds, and he took and poured beer, wine, whiskeys, and scotch and all that in this jug and shook it up. And, come on, Larry, you got to have a drink. And I said, nah. He says, well, come on, I'll get you. We poured water glasses out of the dining hall. We had them in our room. So he filled it up. He says, you got to have a little sip. So I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and I'm sipping little by little, and unknown to me, they kept filling it up. Pretty soon, one of the guys said, I think we got Larry drunk. And I said, no, I feel pretty good. And he said, shake your head as hard as you can. I did. I got up and headed for the latrine. Spent all night with a dry heaves with my head in the latrine. So I can't touch alcohol now. I get sick. So that's a good thing, I think.
You sure?
I'm cured.
Okay, you talked about being in the service. What were you in? What service were you in? Where were you?
I was an aircraft mechanic, and I was stationed in Plattsburgh, New York, which is almost by the Canadian border on Lake Champlain, and I was with SAC. I was an aircraft mechanic and an assistant crew chief on B-47s, B-52, and later went to KC-135s, which are like Boeing 707s. Only they're a jet tanker.
Did you have any flights anywhere?
Yeah, we used to go back and forth to England. We went TDY to England. We went TDY to the Azores. We went TDY to, Greenland. In fact, Greenland was if we take a bomber up or an airplane up for a test flight after an engine change. If we got snowed in Plattsburgh, our alternate base was in Greenland.
Enjoyed yourself, huh?
Yes, I did things that I never would have done.
Such as?
Oh, uh, I didn't run around with a general crowd of guys. I had a buddy on base who had married an English woman, and well, back up a little bit. My roommates were golfers, okay? So when I first got there, it was in the middle of winter, and when spring came, they were anxious to get on the golf course, so they got me to go over to base services and check out a set of golf clubs and shoes and a little cart. And that Sunday, we spent all day on the golf course chasing that little ball around. Well, I wasn't very good at it, and I got tired fast. So that night, the next weekend, they said, well, we're going to go again. Go check some more out. And I says, no. My buddy that lived on base who married this English girl invited me to go to a picnic with him at a park and to go trout fishing. And I liked that a lot better. And I've never been golfing since.
You ever been trout fishing since?
Just a little bit for steelhead, but I never caught any. I haven't done any fishing in a long time, even though my family did a lot of fishing.
I could see.
Yeah,
by
there are
the photo.
pictures over here of my grandpa and my dad and myself catching catfish. We used to fish up where Sherrod Park is. Everybody calls it Sherrard Park, but that isn't what it is. It's Sherrod Park. And we knew the ladies that lived there. Betsy Sherrod lived there, and that was one of my dad's school teachers. So she used to let us go back and fish on the lake, and there was a guy named Judy Hyman who owned some property there. We fished there. And then where Kyle Motors is, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a T-break wall back there, and we used to fish off from that.
Catfish?
Mostly catfish, yes.
Big fish.
Yes.
What kind of jobs have you had during your lifetime?
One main job, except for the Air Force.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a
Okay.
minute. Did you ever mow grass when you were?
Oh,
a little
yes.
kid?
I used to mow grass for all the people around me, people that owned Lighthizer's restaurant up by the Congregational Church, a guy named John Adams, I mowed his. Mrs. Childs, who Rich has written about, Earl Childs. He was the banker in Vermilion. I mowed their grass. And Mrs. Thompson, who lived right across the street from me, she used to own the apartment buildings next to the town hall there.
Yeah,
just north
how
of
did
them.
she pay you?
She never came downstairs. I'd go over and ring her doorbell and knock on her door and yell, and she'd open up the upstairs window, put the money in a bucket and lower it down, and I'd take it out of the bucket.
How about Lighthizers? How did they do it? How did they
I
pay you?
I used to have to go down to the Lighthizers restaurant to collect my money, and the first time I went in the front door, and Mrs. Lighthizer says, no, come around to the back door. So I went around the back parking lot and come in. She gave me my money, and then she says, would you like something to eat? So they always gave me something to eat when I went to collect my money from mowing their lawns.
So you went from lawn mowing to where?
Well, basically, in my sophomore year, I had a buddy named Paul Shover, and my boss then, his name was Chuck Barber, and Chuck was looking for somebody to work with Paul when there wasn't anybody, somebody was sick at school, one of the custodians. They wanted somebody that they could work 4 hours and clean classrooms. So Paul recommended me, and we used to split an 8-hour shift when they had somebody sick, and I cleaned classrooms at 75 cents an hour.
How old were you?
Oh, I was in my sophomore year in school.
So around 16.
Maybe just say 15 or 16,
15,
yeah.
16.
Yeah.
And did you stay with that job?
Yes, except for the 4 years I was in the Air Force. I spent 39 years and 7 months working for the school.
Did you learn anything all that time?
Oh, sure, a lot.
Did you meet anybody while you were working there?
I assume you mean my wife?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. She went to school at Fireland Schools, which of course was one of our competitors in sports and things like that. But after she graduated from Heidelberg College, she went to a seminar at Lorraine Community College, and Roger Watkins, one of our principals, was there. And I got in with, he talked to her in, but he told her about Vermilion Schools, and she applied and came and was a 4th grade teacher, and that's where I met her. and we got married in 1972,
In August.
August 1972, right. The day after my dad's birthday.
How many years at the school?
39 years and 7 months.
How old were you when you retired? I mean, it's just a
I was 50 years old.
wow.
I got credit. The board clerk, Jan, had looked my records up, and I got credit for those years from my Southport because we didn't pay into anything then, and I was able to add that for $300 and some. I got that many more years.
Where did you hang out when you were a kid, a young person?
Really young?
Well, not both that and then
Well,
later on.
I hung out a lot at Fulper's Auto Parts in Vermilion and helped them. I hung out at the Sunoco station because my cousin Ronnie worked there, and some of our friends. I remember going over in the summertime and hanging out at the school with Bill Haber and Chuck Barber and Glenn Risden. I remember one year in the summer in the shop they were putting desks together, and we helped them put desks together, volunteer and things like that.
What was the gas station on the corner here?
The golf station?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dick,
Uh,
Barthel.
Yeah, Rich Barthel, yeah. Rich was a fighter pilot in World War II, and him and Hank Fisher, they'd worked for Sharpnecks, and they left Sharpnecks and started up their own business. They did mechanic work in the back room and grease jobs and oil changes, and they used to get me on Saturdays to come down. My cousin Ernie, who's deceased now, got me a job washing cars and things like that on Saturdays. And then before Rich went out of business, he had me come down, and I worked like the weekends, pumping gas and oil, giving oil out and stuff like that, washing windshields.
Well, I know you have a story about your car over there, and I see Tootie came in while you were here. Tell us a story about your car sitting there.
Okay. Tootie's mom. I used to walk around town, and I'd had my car. I think I was visiting either Alan Thompson, one of my friends, or Ernie Fleming at the Gulf gas station, and they'd let me wash my car. And I had it sitting outside right next to where Lee's grandfather lived, who was also a town's blacksmith, and with the top down, and it was like I think a Saturday night, nice evening in the summertime, and somebody comes in the garage and says, "There's some older lady sitting in your car out there." And I walked up to her and said, "You know, you're sitting in a friend of mine's car." And she says, "Oh, that's okay. I know it's Grandma." And it was your mom. She knew my Grandma Boone.
Could you tell us about the stores that were up and down the street along here on Liberty Avenue?
There was
Going from Fulpers, let's say.
okay from Fulpers. There was a restaurant in there. What was the name of it, Rich?
Goody Goody Bar.
Goody Goody Bar. And Mr. Gendix also had a TV repair shop in there. Then there was a movie theater. Bob Noon ran the movie theater. And I'm trying to think of I know there was two, Okagi's and Lighthizer's restaurant was right in there. Then there was the Erie County Bank. On the other side was Hart's Drug Store. On the north side of the street, coming back, Rathburn's grocery store, the Wayside Inn, or the White Inn, pardon me, which is gone now. It's a parking lot. There was Tony's Shoe Store. Pardon? Yep. Wow, I forgot Paul Snack. You best. We used to go in there and you'd say to us, "You best the boys in town." He had really good hot dogs, though. Really good hot dogs.
Were you one of the best boys in town?
Well, I don't know about that. I wasn't as wild as some of them. Okay. Oh, there was Ohio Edison. and I don't think it, I can't remember what was in where Wolf Electric was.
Newsstand Dairy Bar.
Yeah, there was the dairy bar. Yeah, Blakely's ran the dairy bar.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about across the street, across what is Main Street, Division Street, past A&P, there was a meat market before Jeffrey.
Sid Creech.
Yeah, tell me about Sid Creech.
Okay. When we were kids, my dad used to take us in there, and Sid always made his own hot dogs. They used to give us a hot dog to eat. Of course, the hot dogs are pre-cooked. All you do is just warm them up. And Dad used to get a soup bone, and they'd give you the soup bone.
They give you a hot dog.
They always gave us a hot dog to eat when we were kids. So we went in there.
Moving on down further to the east, there was the Riverside Restaurant.
Oh, yeah, I can't think of the name of it. They lived right across from the newsstand. They ran.
Where the the post office.
Yeah, right next to where the post office was. Yeah. Ann's Lunch.
Well, Ann's was down there, but
Yeah.
even further down past
Oh,
where the post office is.
Yeah.
Or the newer post office.
yeah, I can't think of the name. What was it? Do you know what the name is?
It was the River End or something.
Oh, yeah, the River End. I can remember one time. This is going to take my cousin in, Ronnie. He and I are riding down the street on that side, and it goes downhill from Main Street. And a guy opened the door right in front of Ronnie on his bicycle. And all I could see was Ronnie flying through the air, hitting the ground. He was okay. Yeah, he was delivering Lorraine journals, yeah.
Quick delivery. What clubs have you been a member of?
I guess the first club I belonged to was called the Piston Pushers. It was a hot rod club that was started. Don Parsons was in it, Doug Keith, and up where Don used to live, up on West Lake Road there, right by where they used to have twine fields because they used to be fisheries. And there was a little like garage type structure, and we met in there. I can't remember who all it was, but I remember we were kind of an auxiliary of the police department. Harry Lechner was the chief, and we used to pull safety checks on cars for him in front of the Vermilion Boat Club, which was Harold Eating's Fisheries then. And we used to direct traffic for him during parades and things like that.
That's all you did?
Oh, I think we did a lot more. I was president of it for a while. I remember we had dances, and we used to, down in the old American Legion where Ken Castle is now. And we used to get a disc jockey like out of WOL and things like that. There was another hot rod club in the Vermilion called the Piston Pushers, which my cousin Ronnie and Custom Cats. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, the Custom Cats.
Were you a member of that club too?
No, I wasn't.
You were just a...
With Jack Stripmather, Ronnie Epler, Dick Green, Jan Butka, Lee Becker, back there. They were members of that.
They have nice cars?
Yeah, everybody had a nice car, real nice car.
This is an era when in the 50s when people had these really neat cars. It's nice, a person is 16 to 18, maybe 20 years old, and they had these beautiful, beautiful cars. Where did you drive those cars, though?
Well, we used to drive up and down Liberty Avenue. We'd turn around west of town a little bit, drive through Crystal Beach, come back, go around. We had the regular circuit that we.
Why were you doing that?
I guess just to show off our cars and have a little fun.
Did you ever go to Lorraine?
Oh yeah, when I got my '58 Chevy, I went to Lorraine one time and I put 100 miles on my car going up and down Broadway on a Sunday afternoon. We used to go in the Hoop Restaurant in Lorraine. It was on Henderson Drive over the bridge, and they had a little booth there where you ordered and then you go around and park. Well, we used to go there every Saturday night, so the lady got to know us, so she knew exactly what we wanted. We'd just drive right through. She'd say, go ahead and park, your meal will be out. Go to Yala's and get a pizza, a large pizza, and a bottle of pop. Come back with Rob Sanderson, Lenny Salisbury, and Rich Bilks. Come back to one of their houses and eat that large pizza at Yala's.
Did you ever go to the drive-in?
Oh, yeah. Let's see, it was Lenny Salisbury, Rich Bilks, and myself. We decided we were going to go to one of them all-night drive-ins in Lorraine. So we got in my 58 Chevy. We went in. We went to McDonald's. McDonald's was where Diana's restaurant was in Lorraine now. That was the very first McDonald's around here. We each bought a half a dozen hamburgers at 15 cents a piece and 2 milkshakes. Went to drive. We didn't tell anybody, our mom and dad or anybody. They wondered where we were. We spent all night at the drive-in, and on Sunday morning we came home.
Wagging your tail behind you.
Yeah. Nobody ever said anything. I think my mom and dad trusted us. I hope.
How'd you get involved with scouting, Larry?
Okay. Reverend Bertoni at the Congregational Church up on 60, they'd had a scout troop, and the scoutmaster was Dr. Stack. And Dr. Stack had had a heart attack, and he was also president, I believe, of the local dental association out of Cleveland. And he just couldn't do scouting anymore, so he quit. And this was in February. So about August of 1975, Reverend Bertoni put an ad in, or if you want to call it, or a piece in our church bulletin, and asked if there was anybody that would like to help start up a scout troop. They had some money in the bank. They had some equipment stored underneath the organ pipes. And so myself and Rudy Rising back there. Rudy was in our troop for a long time. We all met at in the lounge, and we met for several weeks. The district executive came out and met with us, and we were meeting on Tuesday nights. And I told the group that I belonged to Vermilion Fish and Game, and I had a meeting that night. And we were trying to find a scoutmaster. We were thinking of teachers and everybody like that. So I went to the Fish and Game meeting. I come in and I said, well, just think of a scoutmaster yet? And they said, yeah, I better sit down, Larry, but first you better go talk to your wife. And that's how I got to be scoutmaster in October 1975. And so far still am.
Were you a scout when you were a youngster?
For about 2 weeks is all.
How old were you when you were a scout at first? For that 2 weeks, do you remember?
Probably 11 in there someplace.
Over the years, how many scouts have gone through your troop?
Hundreds. Right, Rudy? We do have, since I've been in the Scouts, we've had 50 Eagle Scouts. Some of their pictures are here. A gentleman by the name of Matt Greiner in the back is going to be number 51. He's got everything done except his Eagle project.
That short kid back there?
Yeah, the short kid back there.
Tell me a little about the history of that scout troop. You should know some.
Well, I have pictures here of it, and actually it was like, I think, 1912, 1913 when we got our first charter, and we were Troop 2. There are pictures here. And through the years, as scouting evolved, our troop numbers changed. We became in the 200s. Then they got 5 districts in our area, and we became Central District, and we became the 4s, like 447, which we are now. Just recently, the Cleveland Consul and another consul east of here, and our consul merged, and we have one big consul now called Lake Erie Consul, and we go from Sandusky Bay all the way to the Pennsylvania border and down the other side of Wellington and New London, over to Norwalk and over Richmond Heights and east of Cleveland. In fact, our summer camp is at Beaumont Scout Camp, which is about 2 hours east of here, over by Paynesville in Ashtabula County.
How much camping do you do?
We try to go camping or at least have an activity once a month.
All year round?
All year round, yes.
You go out in the winter time?
Yeah, winter camping is better because there's no mosquitoes.
And you sleep in a tent?
Sometimes we sleep in a tent.
You
Sometimes
sleep in
we
a
sleep
tent?
in a cabin, yes.
Larry Howell sleeps in a tent in the winter time?
Yes.
Okay. If you say so. When you think about all the time you've lived here in Vermilion, can you tell me about some characters that you might have known through those years? You must have known a few. People. Who pops into your mind? You must have known a lot of people.
Yeah, I have.
Through the schools.
Well, there was Chuck Barber, who was my boss for quite a few years, and he did the same thing as I did. He married a school teacher, and I married a school teacher. And there was Bill Haber, who did a lot of trades. I can remember him picking me up in his car. I lived on the corner of 60 and South, and pick me up in the summertime and take me to school so we could go to work and things like that in his Model A. That was in the 50s. So, but he had a Model A. And there was Glenn Risen. Glenn Risen was a farmer. Risen Road is named after his family. And, oh gosh, Glenn was a very inventive guy. He invented all kinds of things. I remember one time he said that they didn't have running water in the house, so he got a gasoline engine, run a pipe out to their pond, and they had a natural gas well. He took the carburetor off, and well, part of it anyway, run the pipe from the gas well into the carburetor, put a valve on it, and he controlled the speed of the engine. He pumped water in his house. He did all kinds of neat things. He was really a neat guy.
Thinking about all those people.
Yeah, I've got so many friends around. Gosh.
Here's we go out to eat once a month. Larry, I, and Jack Johnson, and what's his name back there?
Art.
What's his name?
And Matt goes with us
And
too.
Matt, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go out to eat. And invariably, Larry knows somebody. I don't care where we would be. If we're walking in or out, Larry happens to know somebody. So he's stopping to talk to those people. It's incredible.
A lot of it's to scouting. I contribute to scouting because I'm in an organization of honor, Lodge of Honor Campers called the Order of the Arrow. And we have a National Order of the Arrow conference where I meet a lot of people. Last year was at Bloomington, Indiana, at Indiana University. It's every 2 years. The year before that, it was at Michigan State, where I met a lot of people. And I know a lot of scouters from Cleveland.
How many jamborees have you gone to? Do you remember? Do you know?
Well, I actually went to two where I was assistant scoutmaster, 89 and 93. But I've gone to all the rest of them since then. A friend of mine by the name of Dan Jackson, who was an electrician at Ford, is one of our assistant scoutmasters. And he and I go to the jamborees every 4 years. And hopefully we'll get to go to the one in 2019. It's going to be the World Jamboree. It's going to be held in the United States in West Virginia. The Boy Scouts bought a lot of property in West Virginia, and they got some donated, thousands of acres of land, and that's where they now hold all the jamborees and big scouting events.
Going back to your younger years, do you remember Alice May?
Alice May Thompson, yes.
What do you remember about Alice?
Well, Alice had some health problems, and I don't know what else to say about her except we used to, her family, us, my sister and I, and her sisters and brothers, we used to play together.
Part of the reason that's true is because where did you live when you really knew them?
We lived on Perry Street, and they lived right next door, just the house just north of us.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get.
Oh, okay.
So you knew Alice, and you knew and Alice had a sister named
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann, and two brothers or three brothers.
Three brothers, yeah.
But Mary Ann had a son as well.
Jack
More than
Corsino.
one, so Jack
Yeah.
Corsino, who was a
Yeah,
Eagle
his
Scout.
picture's there. He was like our second Eagle Scout, I believe. Second or third Eagle Scout, Jack. Jack lives in Montana now, and I'm still in touch with him.
How tall is Jack?
He's at least as tall as Matt back there. Probably 6 foot what? Matt, what are you, 6'4"? What? Okay, Jack's probably around that too.
Very tall.
Tall and skinny. He was a major in the Air Force. In fact, he was a career Air Force person.
Okay. I'm going to let some people ask you questions because there are people out there who know you quite well. Somebody got questions for my buddy Larry here?
Talk about your training for being Scoutmaster.
Okay. We have training records. Of course, everything is online now. And I think it was probably 1976 when I took my first training as Scoutmaster. You go through training just like the boys, you train the boys to go through training and things like that, like in patrols and different things like that. But according to if you go to myscouting.com and you look up my records, it says I took my first Scoutmaster training January the 1st, 1910. But I think I've taken about every training they have in Scouts, including these beads you get. You take advanced leader training. It's called wood badge training. And that's where you act just like a scout in a patrol, and they train you how to run a troop and all that. And when you write a ticket, and you promise to do so many things. And one of the things how I got really involved with Rich at the food pantry, you make a commitment to do community service. And I made a commitment on my ticket to help at the food pantry, which is at the Congregational Church. And Rich and I have been doing that ever since.
Long time.
And that was in 1992.
One thing I meant to ask you about, and I missed it with Tom Mose when I had him up here, but I wanted to ask you about your kids. Tell me about your son and your daughter.
Okay, I have two kids. I have a daughter named Cecily. Cecily's a school teacher with a master's degree. She has 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. She's a special education teacher, taught in Norwalk schools. When she had her first kid, she took a maternity leave and never went back. But now she's the preschool director at the Congregational Church. Well, my son has been through a lot of, he's sitting way back in the corner with that Navy hat on. He was in the Army. After he got out of high school, he was in the Army. And then he joined the Army National Guard out of Sandusky. He was in there for a while, got out of there. Then he joined the Navy Reserves out of Akron-Canton area someplace. He got out of there, and he joined the Air Force. And then he got out of there. But he started out, as soon as he got out of the Army, he took Cleveland's police test, and for quite a few years he was a policeman in Cleveland, including a bicycle patrolman on the 5th District, which is one of the worst districts in Cleveland. He left there. He got a part-time job at Findlay State Park as a park ranger, law enforcement park ranger. He was part-time there. Vermilion had an opening, so he took their test, came to Vermilion. See if I'm getting this all right. And then they had an opening at Findlay for a full-time state park ranger, so he was there for a while. And he was a low man on a totem pole, was threatened, I think, to get laid off. So Vermilion gave him his job back. So he was at Vermilion for a while, and he's always looking for a new job, better job. And right now he's working for Cleveland Metro Parks out of Strongsville as a state park ranger, or a Metro Park ranger. And he has two kids, a boy, actually he has 3 kids. He has a boy and a girl, and if back there his wife Noelle has a 3-week-old baby. And his name is Gus.
Well, he's
Okay.
making a note of all this, you can bet.
Oh, I'll bet, yeah.
Any more questions for Larry here? Somebody must have a question. There's a question.
Is there a scouting award that you've earned that you're particularly proud of? And if there is, what do you have to do to?
Well, actually 2 of them. One's the Silver Beaver, which is the highest award in scouting an adult can earn. My Silver Beaver is up there in one of them little black cases. And the Order of the Arrow, which is the Lodge of Honor Campers, there were 7 of us in our area that got the Centurion Award a couple years ago. I was also elected into the Boy Scout Hall of Fame in 1910 as the only one in our council. Or 2010. That's the 100th anniversary of scouting.
He looks a good deal younger than
And-
he really is.
Out of scouting, I was elected into Vermilion High School Hall of Fame. Scouting has been really good to me. Really good. I've been in scouting longer than I worked.
How many years, Larry?
I've been in scouting 43 years this October, and I only worked for 39 and a half years.
Which paid better?
Well, actually, I worked all my life with youth. When I was a custodian, I worked my way up from custodian up to supervisor of maintenance, buildings, and grounds in the Vermilion school system. And all my life, I've worked with youth. And so I think both working at school with the staff and the youth, and also working with the scouts, they're both equally rewarding. You can't beat working with youth. And the adults in scouting are great too. Very good. I got a lot of friends.
Larry, you have a story about someone who got ill when you were working as a custodian in the schools. They liked you, so they came up to when they didn't feel well.
Oh, yes. When I was a custodian in South Street School, like all the custodians we've had in school, the kids always called us by our first names. Like Chuck Barber was Chuck Barber, Bill Haber was Bill. Chuck Barber's dad they called him Pa Barber. And I'm in South Street School, and I'm walking down the hallway, and a little kid come up to me and said, Larry, I think it was a 3rd grader, Larry, I don't feel good. Grabbed a hold of me, threw up all over me. Luckily, I lived real close to the school where I could go home and get changed. Sure.
Tootie.
Thank you. It's not me, it's the boys.
Somebody is teaching them something besides how to sit like this and punch on a, machine, and they need that.
We try to have a rule in scouting, and it always don't work. You don't bring your electronic equipment on a camping trip. If you do, you don't use it. You're here to enjoy the outdoors. Thanks.
Tom's good.
When you lived on the corner there at State and South Street, there was a building that was very close to the road that I know for a fact that you sold stuff on.
No, I don't.
Well, I actually have something and I bought two.
Was that across from the South Street School?
No,
Pop Nichols' place?
it was right in your front yard, but it was on the tree line.
I sold worms.
You sold other stuff too.
I did?
Tom's got one of those worms.
You could take a very quick look and just first, and then you'll know what it is. But I think I was probably maybe 10 years old when I bought it.
Wants his money back, too.
Yes, there's Jim Hegan. I wondered what happened to those in my older life. Wow, yeah.
Show,
Wow.
show these folks what you got there.
Cleveland Indians.
And they date from 1948 to about 1954 or 5.
Wow.
And I had to replace the manila envelopes that they were in because it was falling apart. But that is the little packet that I bought from you.
What'd you pay for it, Tom?
I think they were, you really overcharged me. I think they were 10 cents a piece.
Oh, wow. I do remember.
That was almost more than I could afford.
I do remember collecting these. I was an ardent Cleveland Indians fan. I used to go to the games with my dad. And, wow. Well, you know how I got these?
Oh, on the back of it, the Num Num potato chips.
Yeah.
They came in those.
Yeah, some of them I think I got from, I used to write letters to the Cleveland Indians fan club, and I think some of them they came from there.
You don't really remember that building. I was curious as where the building came from.
I don't remember it.
You know, when you cross the road on the sidewalk,
Okay.
going south on Grand Street there, right?
Going south?
Yeah.
Be State Street.
No, you're
On South Street.
okay. Yeah, I guess Grand's turns into State.
Yeah.
But it was just, I can't remember where the light was and the stop sign and so on.
Mm-hmm.
You crossed the street and you were on the south side of South Street. And it either sat, I think it sat to the left of the crossing a little bit on the hill.
You know,
And it was maybe 6 by 8 and it had a roof on it. It was almost like, if you could imagine, a popcorn stand.
I'm thinking that was right in front of my dad's garden. Yeah. I think Dad built that, if I'm not mistaken. Was it? Well, he always used old lumber that he got for free, but that could be or that couldn't be. You want these back?
No, he wants his money back.
Oh, pardon? Okay. I'll put them right here for now. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that.
Very interesting. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Oh, Bob. Uh-huh. I think that was the one that I've been trying to find where he's holding, he was a short guy, he was probably what, around 4'5", 4'6", and he's holding it up over his head and the tail's dragging on the ground. That's the one I've been trying to find. Right here, I found one of them. It fell out of my dad's book of my dad and my grandpa when they fished down where your place was there. If you want to look at that, I know you wanted some pictures. I got it right up here, and I'm in it too.
He doesn't want that one.
Right, yeah. I remember going in there, and I went in with your dad one day. Your dad was in there, Lloyd, and I just called him Lloyd. And he was saying something about pie or something. And I said, oh, I had a piece of pie. And after that, every time I see him, he'd ask me where my pie was. And he used to, I still got it at home. I broke the steering wheel off from it, but your family used to sell international tractors. And I have a Model M tractor that he gave me. And he used to give me every year up on overhead on the beam or something. He had all these Pontiac models on the shelf. And every year he'd give me one. What did I do with them? I customized them. I ruined them. Oh yeah, I used to run around with your brother, Butch. Wow, some great memories on the front porch of that house where you guys used to live, and in the garage. I saw the other day where Raleigh Nordheim had died. He was a mechanic for you guys. Yeah. Yes, Denny.
Yeah, years ago, when Lake Road was 6 and 2, they used to have that S-curve coming around the corner there by the railroad and the old Kyle garage.
Right.
And as it turned up and went east, there was a gas station right there. I was wondering if you remember.
George Roberts.
No, there was a little gas station right
Yeah,
there.
Right on the corner.
yeah,
Was that Gulf?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he had an outside lift where he greased cars and changed oil and stuff. Yeah, originally. Uh-huh.
I couldn't remember the name of that. We used to walk by there every time I went down to the movie theater. And one last question. There used to be a trucking company that would haul stone out of Toledo to Cleveland before they could put them in the ore boats. And they were quite famous for running red lights and stop signs. And it was always running through the Barcelli. Who was it? Barcelli. Barcelli.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. Everybody stayed off the road when Barcelli was running stone.
Yeah, that's right.
Good times.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up in Vermilion. We knew everybody. Everybody knew us.
Where'd you go swimming, Larry?
Oh, we used to go swimming off the Main Street beach. There was a rock out there. I think it's still out there. It's called Table Rock. And we used to go out to it, and I can remember just before you get to it, it got really deep, evidently where the current and stuff had washed it away. Then you get there and you sit on the rock, and the rock was just barely underwater. And people would think you were sitting on a lake, on top of the lake. We used to walk down, when I lived on the corner of 60 and South, we used to put our bathing suits on and no shoes or anything, walk down to the lake, spend all day down the lake, get sunburned. I remember going across Liberty Avenue and walking down the roads. It was so hot you had to run across the road to burn your feet, walking on people's grass to get down there.
Those were the days, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah, they were great days, let me tell you. Of course, I suppose the kids nowadays would say, nowadays are great days.
Every day, yes.
Yeah.
There's Tony back there.
My grandkids used to play on that rock all the time. I lived there for 40 years.
I know you did.
And they came home from college one time and they were sitting around and talking and they said, is the rock still there? And my daughter said, who would move it?
I see that. Yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, wow.
Art, you got any questions for this guy? Well, if nobody's got any questions, thanks a lot, Larry.
You're welcome,
These people
Rich,
appreciate
my friend.